In astrology, we have a basic rule when it comes to looking at mental illness. What we look for is we look at the moon and then Mercury. And the rule is, if the moon's in really bad shape, but Mercury's good, don't predict the person's mentally ill. But if they're both in bad shape, there's a good chance of some serious mental illness there. Okay? Now, as the name of this book is, Babies Need Mothers, How Mothers Can Prevent Mental Illness in Children. Yes, this is a book about mental illness. What people call mental illness, according to Clancy McKenzie, is the result of early separation trauma. That's all it's the result of. It's treatable. He's treated many cases of severe schizophrenia. Severe mental illness this guy successfully treated. Okay? By approaching the original trauma, the separation trauma in the first 3 years. So, when we think of mental illness in this context, it's just a separation trauma that can be healed. It's like, oh, okay, it doesn't sound very scary. This term, mental illness, it's a scary term. It brings up these visions of people in institutions with walls that they can't get out, and electroshock therapy, and cattle prods, and straitjackets, It's like this really scary image that the idea of mental illness can bring into our minds. But when you think about it, all it actually is someone has a separation trauma and they get triggered to fall back into it. No big deal. Now, when we hear the word mental illness, we get all those gothic visions because mental illness was so badly managed. It was just badly managed. First, you're just possessed. Yeah, you're possessed by the child mind, And that can be a hell of a demon, So first it's possession. Then it becomes something that you can't function. You need to be locked up and given drugs and shock therapy. And these days, you need drugs. That's how they deal with it now. There's no therapy, there's no healing, there's no cure. It's just like any physical medical problem. There's no healing it, there's just drugging it. It's the same with mental illness. Okay? Yeah, Clancy McKenzie resolved hundreds, thousands of people's mental illness through the knowledge of where the mental illness originated. Okay? Without drugs. Pretty cool, huh? So, mental illness, when you read this book, you realize it's not such a scary thing. It's very preventable, and it's treatable. And he treated many people who had very successful lives after being in institutions for schizophrenia. Okay? So, it's not that scary of a thing. Now, what happens in mental illness, though, is that the brain starts to actually grow differently. Because of that trauma, the brain gets engaged in different things and grows differently. So part of curing any type of mental illness is restructuring the brain. So it simply operates differently. Mantras, meditation, affirmations, neurolingual programming, all these things have the same purpose. To redevelop the structure of the brain so it's working in a balanced fashion instead of one part being neglected and another part being hyperactive. Okay? Because that's literally what happens when a trauma happens. A part of the brain goes on to, all right,